like something of like 15 online issues, and like I think I published like 14 like printed books for different people. And like I don't know if you guys have ever ran a magazine, but like sometimes you tend to take yourself like super seriously as an artist, I guess. Actually sat down one time. There we go. Actually sat down one time and wrote down like the 10 commandments of Clefjaw, and I'm probably going to break a lot of these rules tonight. So, number 1, don't send a submission and then send a list of corrections to make. Send finished, fully edited pieces only. Number 2, flowers, coffee, bars, cafes, cats. We like cats, but not cat poems without a flair of extraordinary observation. We've never published a cat poem, and we never will. Number 3, overusage of name dropping. Number 4, words like dreamt, poem, poet, poetry. Number 5, being overly genteel or verbose sucks. Don't write to be clever, write to say something genuine and not forced or flowery. Fuck that shit. Number 6, cliche titles. Number 7, submitting multiple emails for consideration. Number 8, using fake names to better your chances of acceptance. This happened more times than I'd like to admit. Number 9, poems that go nowhere or snapshot poetry. I have an example of that later, probably in one of mine. And then number 10, submissions not following guidelines is the most important. So you guys just remember this stuff, you know, if you submit to magazines, like a lot of this is trash, obviously, but you know, just don't pretend your name is somebody else. I'm gonna go ahead and on that note, start with something I scrawled in my notebook. I really hate microphones. You guys can hear me okay? Yeah.
Just speak up a tiny bit.
You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to use the microphone. So I'm going to use the microphone now. I just like have a bunch of stuff like jumbled up here, and I'm going to read some of it, and then I was going to read some angsty stuff about Tinder, and yeah. So lately I suffocate when faced with the prospect of loneliness and being more than accustomed to sprawling out on an empty hardwood floor. Death is my favorite t-shirt. Blood soaks the handlebars of my only means of transportation, and the furniture you abandoned is a keepsake I worship. I'm reborn every Thursday / end of the month sudden with debt and a belief in a singularity in space that comes as a distress signal from another species I share too much in common with. And when asked that important question, what are you? Instead of answering that I am human, I can proudly say I've always been foreign to the likes of you. Woof. Let's not build any further on our differences. I'm living through a new means of forced functionality. Call it naked larceny of the non-existent spirit. I'm stealing ahead with my potions of existential profit, loss, and gain with a fraction of insight on subjects too close to home. I'm reaching out into the endless void for a pillow to smother my discomfort. A lighter, a dark, I'm holding a flame in that non-existent pool that ties with our shared fear of loneliness. I can relate with that only child of 2 loving, court-mandated caretakers. I can be that son holding a light against the tide pool and fear, being comfortable with myself, imposed isolation. And so deep down I can believe, just like you, that somewhere after death, some epiphany, we're united or reunited with someone who gave us purpose. That's it for that. I really, really hate my handwriting, but this is actually about a guy who gave me a stereo system when I first moved to Denver. I sat up all night with my ex-wife at the time, and well, she was my wife at the time, ex-wife, yeah. But we sat up after she found like some drugs at like the church, which was like this little rave spot over here, like off of Colfax or whatever. She just found like this bag of drugs, and I don't usually do that kind of thing where I'm like, just take mystery drugs, but fuck it, I did. And we like raided the alleyways for furniture, and I ran into this guy who like almost got me to smoke meth. Thankfully I didn't, but he like almost tricked me into it. So this is about it. Glory be unto the patron saint of tweakers or salesmen, the Samoan alleyway furniture expert. He has given unto me a free surround sound system, box fan, and plastic shelves where he maintains the premise that nightclubs aren't what they were in the 70s, and kids don't party like they did in the 70s. His blessings are gifted to those wise enough to whisper through the cracks or announce themselves by pelting his window with tiny pebbles. He's had this Donna Summer poster since he was 13, and it's the centerpiece of his nostalgia, hanging above a full set from the infamous Britney Spears interview. Which one, I'm not sure, but I know his pink piranhas and neon green dartfish were genetically engineered to play kissing games, and it's really a life or death game of chicken when making moves on a pink piranha without much inhibited sexual tension floating surface level. I really want to get the fuck out of here and get my home and fuck my woman, and I'm mistaken that he's not dabbing with that nectar collector he's trying to pass my way. That's that one. So like I've had a series of like really horrible neighbors over the last like year and a half, and I've kind of been keeping like track of them, and then also keeping track of like horrible Tinder dates, and they all like just melded into this one long form thing that I've been writing for over a year. I won't torture you guys with all of that, but do want to share a little bit of it. So, living under the most assuredly unprecedented manner of someone saying, if it doesn't work out with him, call your boy. You have the countenance of those who fight with stand-up comedians, sans a sense of humor about yourself. Without dimension, possessing the sweet and strong drug-like effect that gives pause on direction in life. You emit the pheromonal brink of a line drawn between both nostrils, a tapeworm with a succinct, almost devilish magnetism that proves we are connected on scary, unavailable, unreachable levels. The preyed upon, the safe distance between point A and point B, the ill-advised evokement of an acellular pseudo-spiritual awakening. It's one more holiday weekend, and sitting here with the peripheral vision of a dirt-based life form, any and all delusions aside, it's hard for you to believe that you're on the consistent side of a crown waiting on the other side of hell's green door, fashioned from your numerous trespasses against society. It's very fashionable to say things are going well, that we should pause and put your body on the line once more, and 3 STI screens later feel relief when it's another negative result on your never-ending cycle of self-abuse. Another notch for someone longer than yourself, another wine story for the whisper circle in the family living room. Don't spend your holidays with a sense of purpose wrapped around an idle finger. 3 rings later, it's a hurdle over someone else's trauma that fails the connection. Take full ownership of the next 2 to 5 days, 2 to 5 months, 2 to 5 years, 2 to 5 decades. Walk backwards into another open mouth, lingering dark. It's like really hot up here.
Yeah.
Sorry. I'm going to continue on. A muffled sound of white entitlement bleeding through from upstairs, a sounding board hidden above the vents in the bathroom. You can watch as past habits are ejected in the snow-covered sidewalk, cursing failed parenting and the trepidation that promises to follow. You can smell the untrusted teeth of New Year's Day, the brine of what's left behind the street sweepers and night terrors from the year before. You've abandoned the merit of luxury in lieu of perhaps misplaced trust and personal connection via the all-too-superficial catalyst. You think of relative one-night stands after the magnum opus, the great work of alchemy and thin veil chemistry finally reconciled. Free will and unbridled dominion, precious commodities, and this position of subcutaneous authority. You thrive in a state of sudden repulsion syndrome before understanding the diagnosis is deeper than the connection. Instead, try to envision yourself as the all-encompassing empathy wheel, a circumnavigating source for bereavement and toxic flames, a gold vest of warm embrace with interchanging hands for shoulder chains. Your bird chest held together by an innate attraction to being repulsive, together, untouched by whatever grief you've promised in the rear view. An ex-lover's untimely death, a choice of circumstance over forethought, intimate consideration. Abrupt finales on the horizon for the aloof orphan, tentative grasp on the ephemera, a gaseous mystery shrouded behind unmistakably cruel moments of discourse between the medium, the room, the unwavering vessel, and the lock.
Huh?
You doing good on time?
Oh, how's it? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you guys. I'm going to talk about some neighbors. A new neighbor enters the fray and we've graduated to spitting on one another. Considering that kind of audacity in your self-appointed station, you're approved for a freshly minted prison cell with hot pussy on your breath. You're expelled from the mouth of far-fetching entanglement, a soft spot for the ill-conceived and given invitations by a solely and underspoken air of superiority in the face of what is easily recognized as another empirical shift between vessel and visage, when it's in your least best interest. 95% rope bunny and 5% hunter prey, or vice versa, your inherently flawed counter moves are superseding and dominated by your incredibly crude sense of purpose. A bevy of reluctance and well-timed lapses of memory. A strangulatory sense of smell, bread, and pack mentality. The cigarette and weed smoke stacked high enough to wash up a body and embarrass your way of carrying weight among all circles. When you say Mamba mentality, it doesn't reconcile with the inherent sense of shame. There's no safety pillow waiting to cushion your ass in the middle of speculatory circles, and you sweat over the all too elusive sense of prosperity. Another woman sitting on your face. Snake rides in the tall grass for your birthday. Ambient dial tones to an impending heat stroke, a cool hand repose living in your headspace rent-free. You're living out the fantasy of someone more persistent with their attempts to attain a strong professional base, your oyster cracker dream pit hanging on the bland outlook of a god you worship from a chapel inside a sealed can. Your codependent nature resting on the depths of your abandonment issues and failed virtue. The conversation is constant to the point that there's little debate about everyone's complicity to the sentence, a lower middle rung existence built from the tenement up. You can't walk among them with full impunity without an awareness highly regarded as an acute aggression towards strangers, and so you play the devil's dulcimer on fire in a house of fragile, self-righteous flair. I think I got like two more, if that's okay with you guys.
All right.
The air tastes like cold mangoes. The prison becomes pussy, a high-end resort for drug-fueled, sex-crazed rendezvous without being the comfort of their apartment. An ashtray grows legs and wears out your favorite hoodie. A maple tree is laid out on the topsoil of your pious, albeit oblivious resistance to change, and you learn to breathe cheaply like a self-motivated and stern individual with scars for knuckles to match the friction of the unforeseen. There are those who see you in lighter context, a skim beacon of hope above where you sit on the other side of the green door. And when you put your stock in the vast exchange between peaks and valleys, the shadow therein, backing you into a corner of your cognitive distortions, an unreachable and vast wing of Mike Tyson's mansion at odds with another, waits for you, and waits for your pivot foot to go lame, drop your guard, if only for a second. Convincing enough to believe the last neighbor with a penchant for blight and verbal discourse wears an eye patch to detract from the daily assault on your ear cavity. Your uncomfortable relationship with mental anguish, that you see yourself in her across the balcony screaming, "You're laughing at a dead bitch," which was actual quote. A once renowned and clearly traumatized victim of how we turn said pain into performance art, leaving our front doors unlocked and leaving the windows open to the midnight air. So this last one was just about like walking West Hollywood on acid. And I call it LSDM, which, yeah, there we go. Cool. Walking 15 figurative miles to get to the 90s angsty teen sitcom at the top of the hill, this is a sojourn where Diego Rivera derailed on his conflict between normativity and creative impulse. Social norm dictates that if the hoarding monster sees you taking the picture, it's demeaning. On the other hand, if you go unnoticed, native, and catch him, it's art. Not only that, but it's the kind of high-end bullshit, masterpiece, retro copy art that you'll find in storefront mannequin displays on Melrose and Fairfax. The vegetation in this hot trash garden is all organic. The underwear and thrift store Roman sandals are mid to top quality only. You're destined for only great things at the top of that hill. Forget all these precognitions of future and death. It's just another shoe. It just happens to be the same size, same hand, same brand, but it's black. A black shoe, a black fucking shoe. It's not an omen. And at the top of that hill, you're going to find all these psychosomatic parodies of yourself in league with clandestine suspicions about every face met along the way. Before a vivisectionist of good lighting, glass, reflection, and caution tape, you were brine in the belly of suppression. And long after the hill, motherfucker, there'll be the same form of dependable care behind bars pitching deadweight ideas about the systematic downfall of traffic culture. But oh, don't tread on that beaten path, motherfucker. Just as it didn't start with you, so it is and never was about you in the first place. Thank you guys very much.
Woo!